Hi guys, good morning. We're going to continue on to lesson 14 today, and we're going to continue comparing settings. So we've been learning that good readers compare their own lives to the lives of the characters in the book, and doing this helps readers understand how the time and place we live in impacts our lives. Today I'm going to teach you that good readers continue to compare his or her own life to the lives of the characters in the book. And last time we met, we compared and contrasted the Yukon Territory in 1897 to Massachusetts. So we're going to continue on that list. Today we're going to start by reading Chapter 7, Gold Camp Childhood, and this is about Cleora Cassidy. Remember that we're reading an anthology, so it does not matter the order that you read the stories in. Okay, so Chapter 7. 6-year-old Cleora Cassidy woke up one September morning in 1907 to the sound of dogs barking. Outside the tiny one-room cabin in Fairbanks, it was snowing, the first snowfall of the year. Her stepfather was packing the sled and hitching up the dogs. He was going prospecting and would be away the whole winter. Although Cleora knew she might miss him later, secretly she was relieved to see him go. Too many nights she had hid under the bed when he came home drunk and argued with her mother. Only the year before, Cleora had arrived in Fairbanks by boat with her mother and stepbrother, Adolf, to join her stepfather. But things had not gone well from the start. Like many prospectors, her father had not found the gold he was looking for and spent too much time drinking at the saloon. With her father gone, life was calmer, but not much easier. Adolf and Cleora attended school, but Cleora's mother had to work, so the family would have food to eat. She sewed for a woman's dress shop and nursed the sick all through the long winter. In the summer, Cleora and her mother hiked up into the hills a few miles outside of the town to pick blueberries. Every day they gathered about 30 pounds, and Adolf and Cleora sold them door to door for 25 cents a pound. Cleora's mother was ashamed and did not want anyone to know how poor they were. She had to make the children's underwear out of flour sacks. She made sure that Cleora and Adolf were always neat and clean. Cleora's clothes might not be new, but they were always washed and pressed, and her hair was always done up in ringlets. After Mr. Cassidy returned from prospecting, Cleora's mother divorced him. He moved back to Oregon, taking Adolf with him. Cleora missed her brother a great deal and thought about him for the rest of her life. In this picture right here, this is Cleora, Adolf, and the mother right here. This is a picture of the riverboats in Fairbanks, and the waterfront. And then this is July 4th in 1910. Right here, it was a parade. So this is a map of the Fairbanks area, and this is a Victorian doll. So this is an old toy. And this was goods and supplies were tied onto wooden pack saddles and loaded onto horses and donkeys and mules. So this would sit on top of a horse or a donkey, and you could hang things off of it. This right here is a picture of Cleora as a young woman in a mining camp. This is her on the horse. Okay, so we're going to continue on reading here. Cleora's mother took a job as a waitress in the mess hall of a large mining operation on Engineer Creek, 10 miles from Fairbanks. She and Cleora moved into a tiny room at the back of the mine owner's house. Cleora could not go to school because it was too far from town. The mine owner's wife strictly instructed her to stay in her room and not be a bother in the main house. So Cleora spent most of her long winter days by herself, playing with paper dolls and looking at magazines. Standing on a milk crate, she used her fingernails to scrape a peephole in the frosty window pane. Through it, she watched teams of horses pass by, hauling huge loads of birch and spruce wood to the boiler house. Every night at 6 o'clock, once the miners had left the mess hall, Cleora ran over to have dinner with her mother and the Japanese cooks. It was her favorite time of day. Cleora did not look forward to Christmas that year. There would be no new dress sewn by her mother, no school Christmas program, no Adolf to share the excitement. But luckily, at last minute, Cleora and her mother were invited to the mine owner's Christmas Eve party. When she opened the door, Cleora entered a magical world filled with candles, decorations, and a beautiful Christmas tree. Under the tree sat a lovely doll with real eyelashes and long curls. a lacy pink dress, and white shoes. Cleora was stunned when the mine owner's wife placed the doll in her arms. With her doll Annabelle by her side, the rest of the winter seemed a little less lonely. The following summer, the mine closed and Cleora and her mother moved to yet another mining camp. At St. Patrick's Creek, 9-year-old Cleora ran a dog team with her own small sled. Sometimes she even earned money by collecting the mail at Esther Gold Camp, which was 4 miles away. When the dogs dumped her off the sled, she picked herself up and got back on, just as Adolf had taught her. Okay. So in the middle here, there's some pictures of what the mining camp looked like. Okay, so we're on the first full paragraph on page 76. Cleora missed another year of school that year, but she loved to read and studied whatever books and magazines she could find. She also learned about gold mining. I pestered the men with questions and hoped someday I might strike it rich, she would later write. When Cleora turned 14, her mother remarried, and they spent the winter at the new gold rush camp of Livingood, 80 miles north of Fairbanks. Cleora earned money by baking bread for the workers at her new stepfather's mine. In Livingood, she met her first boyfriend, a miner named George Backner. Even though she had sworn she would never marry a miner, 3 years later, when she was 17, they tied the knot. Cleora raised her children in the gold camps until they were old enough to attend school. Then she insisted that they move to Fairbanks so they could receive the education she had missed. Cleora worked hard to make a happy life with her husband and children. Their house was full of activity, and she was never again lonely, as she had been when she was a child. But the loss of Adolf was a lifelong sorrow for her. At the age of 16, he had run away from his father and died a few years later at a lumber camp in Oregon. Cleora became a famous pioneer who told stories about the old days to the young people of Fairbanks. When her first husband died, she married another prospector, Arne Erickson. On January 7th, 1915, Cleora wrote the following poem in her poetry book. This is her poem here. Actually, I have a picture of it up here. So she wrote this, and this is what it looked like in her actual diary, but they typed it up here so you can read it more clearly. I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. Am 13 years old. We came here in 1907 to find some gold. Most people think this land is of ice and snow, but if they were here, they wouldn't think so. We kids have a skating rink. The boys shovel away the snow, and when we have nothing to do, it's dog riding we go. We lived on the creek. All of one winter we cooked for men who looked for gold. They never found it, so out they sold. Gold is scarce, no matter where you look, but once in a while, people find it. They are mostly crooks. If a deserving man makes a stake, some crooks claim it, and then the lawyers more than their share take. So she's saying that it's hard to find gold, and even when you do, someone's going to steal it from you, and then you have to get a lawyer, and the lawyers end up taking money. Okay, so she's kind of talking about the greed that was in Fairbanks and in Livingood, which was 80 miles north. So to add to the comparison list, I said that fathers were gone prospecting, so they were looking for gold. Children worked, so they were either picking blueberries, baking, helping sewing, and they used dog sleds. Whereas today, children wouldn't use dog sleds to get around Worcester, but they might use bikes. So your discussion question today. Today, as we read, I noticed that despite the lonely winters, Cleora stayed busy doing the things that made her happy. So I want you to comment with a response. What were some of the things that she did to make herself happy? Okay. And what are some things that you do to keep yourself happy at home? Today, and every day you read, I want you to compare the circumstances of the characters to those of your own life in order to understand how lives are impacted by where and when we live. Okay? I hope you guys have a good day.